phase of organized nationalism. Phase of organized nationalism. See, when we consider this phase of organized nationalism, we generally start this from 1885, formation of Indian National Congress, right? Therefore, we are calling it, now we are discussing phase of organized nationalism. Nationalism was there, try to understand it, rise of nationalism, right? So, even with the 19th century, you will see rise of nationalism. Gradually, try to understand it, gradually there was rise of nationalism. And finally, the culmination of this rise of nationalism was formation of Indian National Congress. I hope you are getting this idea. We are not saying that with this formation rise of nationalism, no. What we are saying that this was the culmination of the process of rise of nationalism in 1885. So, of course, they can ask you a question, why rise of nationalism? I hope you are getting it, we have to discuss. And finally, the impact of this process is finally this realization that now we have to form Indian National Congress. And with formation of Indian National Congress, there was a new phase of our modern India, and we call it freedom movement. And generally we discuss this freedom movement in three parts, part 1, part 2 and part 3. Part 1 is from 1885 to 1905. No, you know it, 1905, from 1905 to 1917. So, there are three phases of our organized nationalism. Phase 1 from 1885 to 1905, phase 2 from 1905 to 1917 and phase 3 from 1917 till 1947. Is it fine? Phase 1 is called, you know it, moderate phase, phase 2 is extremist phase and phase 3 is popularly called Gandhian phase. But in this phase, you do not have only Gandhian movement, you have communist movement also, right? And then you have other section like the revolutionaries movement also. Initially, our focus was only Congress movement, but now modern historians started emphasizing a separate section, other strands like the role of revolutionaries, role of communists, right? Done. They also helped, they also played important role in our national movement. See how we will be proceeding now, just try to understand so that you can link it, you can understand it. Now the first area for us would be, why rise of nationalism? It is important to understand, why rise of nationalism? एकाएक तो नहीं हुआ होगा. How and why we started realizing that there is a need of a national organization. So, why this? This we have to understand. After this, we will start discussing exactly how this formation of Indian National Congress, who was responsible. So, we will start discussing formation of Indian National Congress. Done? When we will discuss Indian National Congress, next part we will discuss when Indian National Congress was established, what exactly was its activity, what exactly they were doing. Fine? You have to understand it, otherwise this area would never be complete. You will always realize that something is missing. So, how we will go for it? Part 1, why rise of nationalism. Part 2, formation of Indian National Congress, because Indian National Congress will represent this idea of nationalism. Part 3 would be, when the Congress was established, what exactly they were doing, or you can say the activities of the moderates. Who were moderates? Early members of the Congress were called moderates. So, part 3 we will discuss what they were doing, activities, those activities were convincing or not. they were doing something or not, or they were doing only tamasa. You know, they were blamed, they were criticized, and they said, extremists said that these moderates kuch nahi kar raha tha. They were doing 3-day tamasa. You know, typical Congress session, they always meet 3 days, for 3 days in December. अभी भी बैठते हैं. इस बार देखना आप दिसंबर में 3 days they will be meeting, mainly 28th, 29th and 30th December. 3 दिन के लिए बैठेंगे. They will debate, then they will go for a resolution and फिर बोलेंगे बाय बाय, अगली बार उधर बैठेंगे. So Congress after establishment, right? Congress after establishment started behaving like this. It was a December tamasa. It was a 3-day tamasa. What was the result? The result was nothing. कुछ नहीं हुआ till 1905. Frustration होगा कि नहीं होगा? So there was frustration, and therefore there was reaction against this moderate. There were dissatisfaction, and there was rise of a new idea, new ideology. We call them extremist. So we will analyze whether ये तमाशा कर रहे थे or they achieved something. Are you getting that? And then we will discuss why rise of extremism. And with rise of extremism, now you are in a movement phase. There will be the first movement, right? And first movement was anti-partition or Swadeshi movement. Then we will start discussing movement. I hope you are getting it. Can you connect it? Right? So this is very important. Otherwise, you cannot use these period, these time, and you cannot use your material also. It would be irrelevant, right? If I will go north, material will go in south, your own textbook will go in east, examination will go in west. Are you getting it? So I always believe in, right, you know, one direction approach. I hope you're getting it, and you will see it. Our material or whatever we are doing, they all will go in one direction. So that we can consolidate. They can go for, you can say, a new area also, but that would be a new area for all, not only for us. Fine. So first part you can give heading, why rise of nationalism? What led to rise of nationalism? Why rise of nationalism? This would be the first question. Now just understand it for 2 minutes so that you can get a formula and you can easily handle without revising anything. Why rise of nationalism? And why rise of nationalism? We are discussing why rise of nationalism in 19th century. I hope you're getting it. And the culmination of this rise of nationalism was 1885, Indian National Congress. Is it okay now? Now listen to me carefully. Why rise of nationalism? Because if you understand it, any time you can say reproduce it with one reading of your NCERT. So there is a formula, there is a fixed approach. Why rise of nationalism? Understand it that in 19th century, even in Europe, there was rise of nationalism. Try to understand, before 19th century, even in the European history, there was French Revolution, there was American Revolution, there was Enlightenment. So because of these ideas, there was a sense of nationalism, and 19th century in general is known for idea of nationalism. So rise of nationalism was not in India, rise of nationalism was in Europe also. You will see Italy, rise of nationalism. You will see Germany, rise of nationalism. I hope you are getting it. So why rise of nationalism in India? One idea is very simple, because, right, this idea was the dominant theme, right, worldwide in different country. So in India also, rise of nationalism. You can say why? How we were influenced by those ideas, Because of the role of Western education. Are you getting it? Because of the Western contact, Western education, we came to know about those progressive ideas, and therefore rise of nationalism. Is it fine? So, why rise of nationalism? One point is because upsurge of rise of nationalism, right, even in different part, and we came to know about, we were also influenced by the ideas of nationalism. Nationalism, we feeling. Is it fine? Second part of this rise of nationalism is because middle class aware, socio-religious reform movement, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Vivekananda, Dayanand Saraswati, people like, you can say them, they also helped. So, because of socio-religious reform movement, because of Western education, because of rise of press, rise of nationalism. Are you getting it? Because they prepared us. They talked about unity. They talked about, you can say, national feeling indirectly or directly. So, therefore, rise of nationalism. Press played important role, Western education played important role, socio-religious reform movement plays important role. So, they also prepared background for rise of nationalism. We started thinking about one nation, rise of nationalism. Third idea is because of colonial policies. Colonial policies. For example, because of the economic policy of the British Empire, we all started suffering. When there was a food crisis in Bengal, we realized that Tamil Nadu also suffering, Punjab also suffering. Are you getting it? So, we started believing that we all are suffering because of one economic policy. We all are suffering because of one administrative policy. We all are suffering because of one civil services policy. Are you getting it? We started realizing it. Fine. There, suppose railways, right? It also helped in unification. So, their approach of unifying India, their approach of one judiciary, one civil services, one education policy, it also created background for unity, and it also helped in the rise of nationalism. Are you getting this? Then, after all this, you have to remember that in 1870s came a man, his name was Lord Lytton. Have you heard about it? Lord Lytton, just try to understand it. I am trying to give you a broader idea so that you can link all this and you can reproduce. Background is already prepared. 19th century was the age of nationalism. Middle class reaction, rise of nationalism. And as a reaction to the colonial policies, rise of nationalism. And then in 1870s came a man called Lord Lytton. See how he is helping our nationalism. For example, Lord Lytton came out, right, with a policy called Vernacular Press Act 1878. Just try to understand it. I told you that because of their economic policy, famine type of condition or food crisis type of condition was already there. Even in the Lytton period, there was a famine. And when there was a famine in Lytton period, vernacular press started writing against it. So, सबने गाली देना शुरू किया, कोई तमिल में दे रहा था, कोई पंजाबी में, कोई मराठी में. They came to know, समझ में आ गया उनको, कोई बोल दिया होगा कि सब गाली दे रहा है आपको, कोई तमिल में दे रहा है. So, because of that, they realized that they must ban vernacular press, and they came out with Vernacular Press Act. Now, try to understand. Vernacular press issue was a regional issue or was a national issue? Regional issue, but all the vernacular So finally national issue. Are you getting it? So you can see that rise of national issue. क्या कर दिया लिटन ने? Now he started giving rise to some national issue. Fine, I hope you're getting my point. Suppose second example you take. किसको बेरोजगार कर दिया? सब जर्नलिस्ट को. क्या करेगा वो लोग? National movement. I hope now just see second. Lord Lytton period, civil services age reduced or not? Yes, maximum age now 19. So civil services age reduced. This issue was a regional issue or national issue? National issue. Who started opposing them? All those middle class, all those educated class. So now journalists against Lord Lytton. Those who were preparing for civil services, they were against Lord Lytton. And now they started realizing that it's not your issue or your issue, it's our issue. I hope you're getting it. So you will see that there was rise of national issue. And now the people of India, educated Indians probably, educated Indians, right, they started realizing that now issues are becoming national. Take one more example. Suppose Lytton passed Arms Act. What was that? Indians cannot keep arms, Europeans can keep arms. It was discriminatory or not? It was racial or not? Indians are different, Europeans are different. So now they are saying Indians are not allowed. So they are telling you that you all are Indians. It will give rise to nationalism or not? Yes. And this issue of Arms Act was not related to Bengal or Tamil Nadu or Punjab, it was a national issue. I just wanted to tell you that Lord Lytton, or particularly 1870s, there were some issues which started becoming national issue. Fine. And because of this, educated Indians started realizing that we have to behave like Indians. I hope you are getting it. अब टाइम आ गया है क्या करने के लिए? इंडियंस जैसा बिहेव करने के लिए. Right? We just cannot think about Bengal or some area or our class interest like the Landholders Association. Now time has come for a national agitation. There was some intellectual who started fighting against this. There was civil services agitation, Surendranath Banerjee. There was agitation under, you can say, against vernacular press. There was agitation against Arms Act. Who were influenced by Arms Act? Those landlords of rural areas, they were keeping arms, not the urban people. So even they were not happy. So finally, I wanted to tell you that in 1870s, there was a realization that issues are becoming national. And we have to go for what agitation? National agitation. Is it convincing? So you all understand that in India, in 1870s and 80s, issues were becoming national. And we must thank this man, Lord Lytton. His rule was blessing in disguise. Right? So nationalism, why rise of nationalism? I told you that how there was a background of it. In India also, middle class, right, started preparing the background for rise of nationalism. And finally, when Lord Lytton came, he convinced us that there is a need to create, right, a national level organization. So in 1870s, there was a rise of, you can say, national consciousness, and of course Lord Lytton played very important role in this. I hope you are getting it, right? Then after 1870s, in 1880s, after Lord Lytton came a man, his name was Lord Ripon. Heard about Lord Ripon? Lord Lytton का पूरा उल्टा था Lord Ripon. Lord Lytton was reactionary, Lord Ripon was liberal. Right? Lord Lytton created, you can say, a new kind of situation, and Lord Ripon came and he started managing the situation. Lord Ripon, I hope you know, he was called father of local self-government. Lord Ripon, in this period you will see Factory Act. So Lord Ripon was a liberal man. I hope you are getting it. So if he was a liberal man, then why we continued that idea of establishing Indian National Congress? Why we started again thinking about rise, you can say, nationalism? Because Lord Ripon was a liberal man. He started suggesting what? Local self-government, administration, age what was reduced again, raised. So he started doing all those liberal act. Fine. So Lord Ripon tried to reverse all the decision of Lord Lytton, and Lord Ripon gave a gift to Indians. That was the gift. What was the gift? Gift was what is called Ilbert Bill. Right? So Lord Ripon gave a gift called Ilbert Bill. Ilbert Bill was a good news for Indians. Why it was a good news, you know, Ilbert Bill? Because now the English judge and the European judge, they all have the same power. Indian judge also can try Europeans. So it was a great decision, yes or no? Yes. So in 1883, Lord Ripon came out with a bill which was a positive news for Indians, Ilbert Bill. And I told you Lord Ripon was known for so many liberal measures. So see now, what was the result of it? When after Lord Lytton, Ripon came and he started introducing liberal measures, there was a realization among Indians that see, we started reacting, and therefore this kind of result.